Welcome to the Inside Housing Podcast, where we break down the housing process, real estate, and investing. Here we go. Jeff, welcome to Vermont's Inside Housing Podcast. Happy you could make it.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really looking forward to this. I was like, of all the inspectors, who's pretty much a celebrity in the inspector who I could have on and talk about home inspections. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again. Yeah. Celebrity, though, that's going a little far.
You know, as a real estate agent, I can't think of any realtors that I've encountered in Vermont that don't know you or haven't worked with you. And so in researching this, I got some numbers for you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So it says 15 plus years in the business.
Yeah.
And over 600 homes inspected a year since 2009. Does that seem about right?
Yeah, we're pushing 13,000 homes.
13,000 homes.
Yeah.
So you've seen a few.
Couple. More than once.
More than once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's properties that I've been to before. In fact, I encountered a person yesterday that was 15 years ago and coming back around. So it's just kind of neat.
And you're seeing the same houses.
I did one house one time 4 times in a year.
Really?
In a calendar year. 3 divorces.
That'll do it. Yeah.
The house might have been a little bit cursed, but
it might have been the house.
it just, as soon as they bought it, divorce, like 3 times. And then finally the 4th one stuck.
All right. Well, that's the trick. Before we even get into sort of like home inspections, how did you get into the business?
My background's actually human behavior. I worked with kids for a bunch of years, started a school for kids with behavioral difficulties that's still going. But in doing that, you had to build it from the ground up. So we did renovations. I ran my own boilers, mopped my own floors, just until your staff built up. You know, you had to do as much as you could yourself. But I've always been sort of interested in housing and just different things. We've had apartments off and on, upwards of almost 40 units to now back down to 2. So I've always loved it. I love buying and selling houses. And so that question, when people are like, at the end of an inspection, so just let me know, would you buy this house? I'm like, I'd buy 90% of the homes I look at. I just love houses, you know?
But you were never a realtor, though.
I wasn't a realtor. And I just got to a point working in human services where, you know, organizational maturity, you get to a point where it's like, well, is this for me? Not for me kind of thing. And I'm just like, I need to do something else. And so I got into doing water damage. You know, I just went to a company like, hey, I just want to work. I don't want to think about what I'm doing. Well, it turns out there's a science to drying a house. Yeah, you go to school, you go to water school, but it's a young man's game. The equipment's heavy. You're doing a lot of demo. It's a hard day's work. I can't tell you how much carpet I've ripped out at 3 a.m.
I've renovated a few houses. Easy, especially if you have to dry things.
Right, and water damages seem to happen at night. You know, it's an on-call business. So I did that, and then I'm like, well, I'd like something lighter. I got into the mold aspect of that. And again, it's school, there's a science to it, and I really enjoy working with mold, which sounds crazy, but
A little bit.
I like it a lot.
How come?
It's the science of it. It's tangible. You can see that you've removed it as you're working with it, but mold is also invisible to people, but your house could be full of it.
That's one of the big issues.
Right.
When we're going through homes, as soon as you see signs of mold and that question comes up, what do you do? So you enjoy the aspect of sort of getting rid of it, cleaning it up.
Solving that problem. Yeah. So and I like to see the numbers go down, you know, like you start at a certain point, you do your baselines and you're like, okay, you know, I want to get to a certain point, and then it's just working at it. And I enjoy that process. Don't do a lot of tear out anymore. We'll sub that out if I even want to do that. But I still like drying. So I have a bunch of drying equipment on hand at the house that really is not popular with anybody because it's taking up so much room. But, you know, it can freeze and the pumps will break. So it's got to be in a warm area, and it's in the basement.
So again, you found an interest in fixing mold problems.
Yep. And again, just still progressing to need something lighter. So, you know, how about home inspection kind of goes hand in hand. Start looking into that. And again, you go to school. You have to do at least 80 credits. So I took a course. I'm like, I really like this. There weren't a lot of people doing it at the time. So there was room to get into the marketplace. Right around COVID, all of a sudden, there were too many people. And then now a lot of those guys are gone. You know, it looks like a quick buck. You just go into a house with a clipboard and you walk around and tell people what's what, and then you walk away. You got to produce a report.
Yeah. So as you're progressing, you get basically full inspections, licensure. And I was looking up, and it says Vermont's first certified master inspector.
Yeah.
So you have that. They're certified mold, and then it looks like CRC, water restoration technician, and then level 1 thermometry. So these are just some of the things. So how do you
Yeah.
get to be a master inspector?
It's at least 1,000 inspections. It's a certain level of education. Education's big in this business, which is part of what I like about it. I take 30 to 50 credits a year just to keep up. I'm always studying. I don't just show up every day. I have 4 screens going at home, and as I'm working, I might have a class going as I'm doing stuff. You're constantly trying to keep up with materials, with how houses are built, techniques, that kind of thing. You just have to. Just different ways that plumbers are doing things, electricians, and that stuff's fun. I love the technology of the business too. And we try to use the best technology available. They'll sell you anything, so you have to kind of pick and choose what is going to be most beneficial. And then I've got a problem of having to have 2 of everything on the truck. So
It's in the truck. There's a lot of
it's a lot on it. So I'm just kind of like, oh, well, what if that fails? I got to have another one, So it's an expensive rolling 4 wheels, but it's fun. Classes come out all the time that are really interesting. And right now I'm, do I want to get into chimney inspections? I really like that chimney camera system,
So you get to get all the toys.
Yeah, but you want to be using them every day. And there's some things I've purchased that I'm just like, I thought that was a great idea, and it never comes off the truck, So I'm just like, why did I do that? So you got to be mindful of that too. But so I got into, home inspection. At the time, you didn't have to be certified. There was no process.
Just back in like 2010s. Early enough.
Yeah, early, mid or early 2000s, you didn't have to be certified at all. So I started off with the only certifications I had were through the organizations that I did the work through to get the education. Then Vermont decided to have a big push on certifying home inspectors. And I'm like, well, it's a great idea, but I'm not sure we did it for the right reasons. You don't have to take any credits, yearly. You don't even have to do 20 credits a year to keep your certification, or, there's no continuing education format whatsoever. So I'm like, what's the benefit of it? I think they did it more so that the consumer has the ability to, I was wronged, so I can go after their license. It's more like there's absolutely no, you just get your Vermont state license and you pay your fees. Nothing else comes with it. No other benefits. There's no other requirements. So I'm not sure who that's benefiting. The consumer, it benefits the consumer. But, if I have a professional certification, I want it to benefit me a little bit too. Like, what am I getting from it? Why would I invest in this? For Vermont, it's not an investment. You do pay for it, but it's a requirement. I feel like it's more on a punitive side if something happens than it is beneficial for us. It's beneficial for our clients, but it keeps somebody from being able to be in the business that doesn't have as it used to be, like contractors would come around with people
Yeah, that happens all the time.
but that could be considered your inspection.
Okay. It was just sort of putting some guardrails on is and is not an inspection.
Yeah. So got that out of the mix. But again, that's more, okay, cool. But what are we doing with the folks that are in the pool to make sure their game stays up, and we're doing nothing? Like you do it on your own.
Really?
So
So is that what makes sort of like all things are not created equal between because you're very well established, and when there's a home inspection that I've seen that comes through and you see, Belrose on it, a lot of people go, yep, I know what I'm getting. And that's just through experience, having done it a long time, and then the quality of the work.
yeah, which is the goal. I want to be as educated as I can for that consumer confidence, but also my colleagues. I want to be able to have those reports seen across companies that, hey, Jeff did this. We know what to expect. And I want people to have confidence in it. So I'm constantly thinking about it. Like even all these years in the business, as I write, if you're on the other side of it as an agent or somebody else, I'm thinking, how's Rennick going to interpret this? I got to make sure that when I write this, he can interpret it, but that it's written perfectly for the issue. So I'm literally not just throwing stuff on paper. I'm looking at it in terms of my client, my audience, because no one wants to be a deal killer or be known as that. And again, that's how you say stuff, I think, more than anything. And so I work really hard on bringing that human factor in. Like, okay, everything's fixable. It's just, what do you want to commit to it?
You have a great line that I pulled. I don't know where it came from, but you got to love AI these days. And it said, being an inspector is like being a referee. You call it as you see it. And I thought about that for a second. I'm like, that actually sounds very accurate. That you're not really for one side or the other, but you're just, this is what I see.
And I had that conversation with myself coming down here. I spent a lot of time by myself in the truck, so a lot of windshield time.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really wanted to talk about because, what is a home inspector? Well, we're generalists. Referees are generalists. You're calling things as you see it within the rules. So everyone was like, well, these aren't code inspections. Well, every inspection's a code inspection. So anything that is in inspection education comes from code. But when people hear code, they interpret it almost like law. And code is not law. Code is the minimum standard anything should be. That's the definition of code. The very minimum that something should be. So when you have somebody come along and say, well, that ain't code. You mean it's not the minimum standard something should be? You're absolutely right. So what we're doing is we're going in and we're basically calling it like we see it. You got a broken guardrail. That in and of itself makes it not up to code. We're not there to enforce the code. That's why it's not. That's when people say, well, it's not a code inspection. No, it's not a code enforcement inspection. We're not going to enforce anything. What I'm telling you, you don't have to do it. You choose to do it or not.
What is then the home inspection? How would you define when someone says, I'm getting a home inspection? What are they getting?
Obviously we can only interpret anything that's visible, that we can smell or see or feel. I can't open a wall. I can't look under people's floor cover. I can't move their furniture or their stuff. It's not allowed.
So that's something a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
That you can't move stuff.
Yeah, it's not allowed. I mean, think about that. Would you want me coming in your house, moving your furniture all over the place, pulling up your carpets, putting holes in your walls just to make sure we don't have mold? And where it goes sideways is when someone buys a home and they do a renovation, they open a wall. All of a sudden, boom, there's mold. Well, you can't detect mold if it's sealed up. You just can't. Unless it's in the air, you're not going to detect it. And most people don't air test up front because of the expense of it. So they open the wall. Next thing you know, the phone rings. Well, you missed this. When did you find it? Well, we opened up, we're doing the kitchen over. We opened the walls up.
You
couldn't see it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. I could write a 150-page report, but if the dishwasher goes in 6 months, it's a terrible inspection. The dishwasher failed. Well, how much money would we make if I could predict when their dishwasher was going to fail? I'm not Kreskin. So in the moment, it's hard to explain that to people when they call. I don't get a lot of those calls a year, but it does happen. I used to send out a letter 90 days after inspection. I had to stop doing it.
Really? What do you mean you sent something out 90 days after?
So, just a check-in letter. Hey, how's it going? How's your new home? This and that. All it became was, we found this and this failed and that cover fell off and this. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sending this out anymore because nobody can say, oh, we love the house. All it became was just a litany of, we don't like the paint color and there's a smell and it just, okay.
So an inspection is you're coming in, you're calling it as it see it. So what is a consumer like? So somebody buying or selling a home, what are they then getting with that inspection report? And how, I have a realty perspective on how they can use it, but from your vantage point, what are you providing them?
So if done right and done well, you're telling them everything you can about that house that you can see, which also we just talked about me being concerned about what my real estate colleagues are thinking or are seeing, but I want to put every crack that I see in the report. I don't want to make it an issue because they're not always an issue. I want to put the home's condition in the report so people know what they're buying as much as possible. I want to put the ages of things, the condition, is there rust? It isn't just failures. It's what's the condition of the microwave? Is it a 1996 microwave or is it a 2023? Where's the water shutoffs? Where's the gas shutoffs? I want people to know their homes. We're also adding a bunch of value with links to, how to know how long something should last, or here's information about gas furnaces, that kind of stuff. So we're trying to provide as much of that as possible. And I really geek out on that stuff. I call it the off season right around December. I'll sit down with my report and I'm never happy with it. I haven't been happy with my report since day one. You're always just looking at it going, this could be better. And I don't like the way that looks. And I want to change this. So I literally just changed to a new report company after 18 years with another company. And it was a big undertaking.
And so I've gotten some of your reports, and I tend to notice, even when I use others, that the reports are really long.
Not anymore.
And so they've shortened down a little bit?
Oh, a lot.
A lot.
Yep. So that was one of the things. So just off feedback from you guys, the reports were like 150 pages. They were long. And the photos would really lengthen them out. But there was a ton of information. I was happy with that part of it. And I knew the program, like I could work with it. But, I researched some other companies. Just, I knew I said, just these newer guys are coming on. They're using some different software. I like the look of that better than I like mine, to the point of, like I said, you're never happy with your stuff. And you're always kind of looking at what somebody else is doing. And I'm in the inspector forums, like every night I'm checking in with people, and I got a buddy in Hawaii that inspects. So for the last 18 years, he and I and another guy who passed away, he was in Chicago, we would be on till like 2 or 3 in the morning just talking about our reports with the owner of the company that we were doing our stuff with. And we would just jump on him and just be like, we don't like this, fix that. Well, he finally sold the company. And Porch is buying a lot of these companies, and they're buying it for the data. They want our customer base of like a 13,000 person customer base, but I don't allow them to use it. So finally my company sold to them. The guy retired, good for him. He had done it a long time. And he would answer my inquiries at 2 or 3 in the morning. He was in California, so, that time change worked, but I'm there at 2 or 3 in the morning going, this doesn't work. So I finally changed over to this new company. The reports are a third of the size. You now have a repair request list you can work with. There's no more cutting and pasting, no more screenshotting. You build your own list in less than 10 minutes and shoot it off to the other. It's so nice.
So it's evolved.
It's evolved a lot.
All
yeah.
right.
Yep. So, it was just learning a whole new process, and it's tedious. I'm talking hundreds of hours of just connecting thousands of comments. I have thousands of comments in my reporting. And so you have to connect them all in order to, like, when you hit it, it'll pop up. So, all those connections have to be created within the report. And I'm like, there's no easier way to do this,
There's got to be some sort of science behind it, because I'm always astonished at the ability to walk through a home, visually see all these things, take a few photos, and then this report is produced. So it does seem that, and this is regardless of who has been used, is that there's a really clear way that things are transmitted onto reports that make sense.
Yeah. And so along those lines, when you build it out, you want to build it out for consistency. So I always want to be consistent in a home because you don't miss things. You have less of a chance to miss things because you're consistent. You're doing it the same way every time. There's always a plan B. I had to use a plan B yesterday. My reporting software didn't connect, so I had to camera shoot the whole property, which is the way I started out doing things. And I would just go home with every job had 400 pictures, and I would load all the pictures and then just build the report from there. It was great for you guys because I was on site for an hour and a half, and it was super fast. And everyone's like, oh, great, Jeff's fast. Well, at home, it's twice as much time. And so I'm just like, all right. And that's when we started doing the on-site stuff more. And we really strive to be there anywhere from 2 to 3 hours tops. Like 3 hours for a 2,600 square foot house, that's a lot of time. You should be able to get everything done.
So a big question that I get is, what are the big things, like the big red flags? And you must get asked this all the time. Is this a deal breaker? Is that a deal breaker? And I know it's subject to opinion, right? And it's also subject to circumstances. So there really is no global answer on this. But what are big things that you are looking for versus some of the smaller things?
Well, structural is really the big thing, like cracking. And people watch a lot of HGTV, so any crack is a big deal to them. And it's the first thing that people come into inspections with, they've been to a showing. Buyers will sometimes perseverate on one issue that they've seen. And they'll come to an inspection and they'll ask the same question 5 or 6 times. Well, what about that crack? Oh, I'm really concerned about that crack. Do you know any more about that crack? And I'm just like, okay. But cracking and movement are really, and I mean, we build in ground that freezes. It's subterranean. I mean, we built subterranean basement, things move. And getting people to understand the dynamics of that, where like I have a couple of cracks in my house that will close up at a certain time of the year and then they'll open up. But they never change. I'm in that house for 2.5 to 3 hours. I don't know what happened before. I don't know what's going to happen after. And those are the things that are hard for people because they're making a decision based upon that. They don't necessarily want to spend the money on an engineer, but they should. And I know that it's frustrating for us to say, to defer to a professional. So I'm identifying the condition for you, but I'm not a specialist. So we need to bring a specialist in. It's like a doctor. You go to a generalist, you go to your provider. Hey, I've got some pain in my knee. Okay. Then you've got to go to an orthopedic person. It's the same thing, but people don't. People think, well, we're bringing Belrose in. He's been at this for a long time. He'll tell us how bad that crack is. Well, I'm not an engineer, so we may have to bring an engineer in to figure that out.
So would you say the biggest thing is just identifying things that, based on what you're seeing and your experience, should be looked at further versus diagnosing this is necessarily the actual problem?
So we talked about what's the home condition. I want to tell you what the home condition is. Some of the conditions are elevated. Hopefully not if you're trying to buy a house, because we never want an elevated condition. People are like, oh, you home inspectors, you just want to find things. I said, no, you don't understand. Do you know how easy it is to write a report with hardly anything in it? It's great. That's what I like. I don't want to find stuff I want to find the stuff, but I don't want a bunch of stuff. We call those the good bones house.
Okay.
Where somebody shows up and they're like, well, you just want to know if it's got good bones. And it's got all kinds of damage everywhere. You're just like, oh my gosh, it's a good bones inspection. And it's like, yeah, it's got good bones, but it's got $100,000 worth of damage. And we don't normally put a number on things, but sometimes you can get close. So I want people to know the condition, but if the condition is elevated, we got to bring in a specialist.
So you're walking around, you're identifying the big things. You put in the reports that, hey, this is maybe something to identify with a specialist. What are other common things that you're seeing that you try to bring people's attention to? Because there's obviously tons of small stuff, right? And there's things that anybody can see. Sort of, you can see peeling paint. You can see if you have an aged furnace, stuff like that. What are things that people don't know that you're looking for that are important?
I think to answer that, and we talk about how people have changed a little bit in our customers. First of all, people need to read their report, and people don't. So when they do have something happen, like, well, I didn't know. Well, we told you in the report, this thing's 25 years old, and you needed to have this looked at. Did you do that? No. I didn't read the report. And so read the report. Same with agents. Like I'll have some agents like, well, I don't read the reports. And you don't need to read the whole thing, but read your summary. But people aren't taking care of their homes the way they used to. When I grew up, your house was an asset. People took care of it. You know, the lawns were neat. Things were, and I say we live in a, you know, this is nothing against Walmart, but it's a Walmart society in the sense that, oh, I'm just going to replace it. You know, it broke, so I'm going to replace it. And then I'm going to leave the other one on the lawn, you know. But people don't paint. They don't fix siding. So I'll go and I'll identify a list of things. I come back and do that house a year later. And I'm like, you've made it worse.
So that's interesting because are you seeing the maintenance of homes, especially if you're seeing the same ones year after year, just gradually declining?
Yep, because people, they don't have the skills. They don't want to learn the skills. They go home and they just live. And I think all of your media options are a big part of that. You go home, you binge watch Netflix all night long instead of maybe painting a room. I like working late at night. Like if I'm going to paint, I paint in the evening. I paint at night and I'm happy. I put on a little jazz and I'm like, I'm doing a room. People aren't doing that stuff. They might go in and paint when they move in, but that's it. And they don't always do a good job. When you go in and maybe they painted their walls black and you're just like, what'd you do? You know, but they don't think about, or the alterations they make. Like you see this when you go to list a house. The alterations they make are just like, oh my gosh, you took a bedroom out. It's going to affect your value. Yeah, I was in a house the other day and they ripped out walls in the basement. They ripped out a room in the house. And it's like, you can see where they did it and then they're going to sell the house. And you're saying to yourself, wow, they just affected their value. Decks are some of the most poorly done. Like, I don't remember the last time I've seen a really good deck. Builders, they don't follow the DCA standards. They just, well, this is the way I think it should be done. And again, we build in ground that freezes. They don't do their base well. And the post frost jack and the deck moves all over the place. And someone comes in and they say, whoa, the deck sunk over here. Well, no, it didn't sink. It got pushed up on the other side. Garage floors. You know,
I see a lot of cracking garage floors.
Yeah, Vermont garage floor, you go in and you know whoever they got to build the garage was really excited about getting a garage up. And they just did a poor job on the base and the cracking is just awful, you know. And it's like, well, what do? Well, you got to take it all out. And yeah, sometimes you just shake your head and go, okay, it's a lot. But you know the expense of it. And when you're showing someone a home, especially first-time buyers, you don't want to walk them into a lot of work, a lot of damage. And that's what's hard for me. And I try not to say a lot because I'm not buying the house. I'm not part of their family. But I want to protect them a little bit. Well, how do you do that without crossing the line? You know, like it's not my role to tell somebody to buy or not buy a house. And that's why I hate answering that question. Would you buy this house?
Yeah.
Would you buy it?
Because it's so subjective.
It is.
Right? Like whether or not you buy a house is, I mean, we also went through COVID and that's, I want to hear
we'll
your
get
take
into
on
that.
But one of the things that I try to explain is that you don't necessarily have to do anything from an inspection report. Sometimes it's just knowledge. Other times it depends on what you negotiate as part of the deal. But I think most people, for a lot of first-time home buyers, would prefer to have more move-in ready. But that's difficult depending on the price point that you're at. And the aging stock of Vermont houses sometimes makes that challenging. And it kind of gets to the point you're talking about where you go to the same house over and over again and you just see sort of a steady decline generally.
You can drive through towns and see it. It's disappointing. There are certain towns in Vermont you drive through and it's like, wow, it's just getting worse here.
So what's your overall take on the age and the housing stock that you're going into right now? Because, you know, I personally had you in on some brand new builds that just go up and then some, you know, we have, I think it's like 25% of our homes are like pre-1950s.
Yeah.
So how is that reflecting you going in and inspecting over and again? And like, what are you seeing?
I do like the older homes. I mean, they are well built. They do come with a lot of issues though. You know, like I did one last week and Still knob and tube in it. We still find that, you know, but you talk to an electrician, like, well, it's the best wiring ever. Great, but you can't change the age of anything. Look at me. It's just, you can't. It's old. It's not safe. It's not grounded.
Got it.
And the covering on it gets brittle and falls off. A lot of times it's covered in insulation. It shouldn't be. There's just a lot of things. The connections are often made outside of junction boxes, so they're just unsafe. But it did last a very long time. I don't think it's going to be better than Romex, which we have now. That will be the best wiring that's ever been at this point. And it's tough to get insurance for that stuff. I did a house yesterday and I had to call the agent and I said, probably need a panel change. You have all glass fuses. That's what's there. And so they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, probably you may not get insurance. The appraiser may call it out and say it's not acceptable. You got to update the panel. When you can put a penny in the hole and have that act as the fuse, sort of a problem. Yeah, you know, don't do that at home.
And so what are you seeing just generally though out there
So
in Vermont?
again, I think it's more about how people are treating the homes. Because you could have I went into a really nice home yesterday in Bear. It's beautiful. I've done it before. And people have just kept it up. The old elements all still work. And that stuff's fantastic. I go into new construction a year later. And I'm like, what did you do to this place? You know, there's a difference in materials too. You know, a 2x4 is not a 2x4 anymore. They're dried down so much. But just appliances, materials used for kitchens, and so it's light duty. The appliances are like Fisher Price toys. Last 5 years, if that. And the new boilers, the condensing boilers. And yes, they have great efficiency. They last 6 to 10 years as opposed to 20 to 40 years. And I don't know how that obsolescence is good for anybody. I don't think the savings are there on, oh, it's 5% efficient. Great. It's junk in 7 years, or throwing it away. There's nothing to reclaim about them. Whereas, I mean, my boiler right now, I think is 25 years old. It probably needs to be changed, but it's humming along.
Some of the older stuff, and it's interesting going into newer and older houses. I always kind of like the term good bones. There's some houses that they are quite old, but the bones are so solid, some of these houses. And while they need work, they're going to hold up. And then sometimes you go into others and you see it's lighter. It's almost like, is this going to actually withstand time a little bit? So it's very subjective.
Well, and I'm 50-50 on how tight we make houses. I think it's good, but I also don't think it's good. And the reason being is people don't know how to use their air exchange systems, or they shut them off, or they fail and they don't fix them. And then you're going to get mold because the house is too tight. What are those materials going to do long term? Are they off gassing? So I think we were on a big spray foam kick for a while, and now it's not so much. People were doing hot roofs where they're spraying the bottom side of a roof deck instead of having insulation on the floor. And I'm like, that's really good, but how are you going to know if your roof leaked? What if moisture gets trapped between that roof structure and the spray foam, which if you're using closed-cell foam, moisture can't go through it either way. So your roof deck could rot off the house. So we'll see how that's going to go over. It hasn't been used long enough for us to really figure it out. But then, you know, once they started doing it, then they decided, well, we need a fire coating on it. So then you had to put an intermescent spray on it. How come? Because of how it off gases when it burns. You got to be able to get out before you get subjected to that.
So an advice for a first-time home buyer or even a second, third-time home buyer is once you own that home, regardless of the condition, take the time and maintain it well, right? And I will say from a real estate perspective, you do see the difference, especially when it comes to selling, between it's been maintained. You can always, and that does help with resale value, which is things, even if they're older, have been maintained well. You know, like I have furnaces and different things that they are older, but they're working well. Well, you know, they change out parts, they lubricate them when necessary, they check fans.
Well, we talk a lot about pride in ownership, and that's what's fallen off. Like, it's not there. Not like it used to be, I don't think. People just want to be in a house, and they think, oh, I'm in a house, it's just going to take care of itself. The stuff just works. And I marvel at that, like where you go into some places and everything's working. You don't know how because it's in such bad shape. And the dude down the street's house burns down and it's brand new just because they made a simple mistake with leaving a candle burning or something. But this other place probably should have burned down years ago. And some way, shape, or form, it's still working. And I go in and I just don't know how. There's a ball of wire in the closet or something. And I'm just like, how is that working? And people do some crazy stuff. But you got to be vigilant. And we talk about things like safety, and people don't realize, well, maybe I shouldn't burn candles the way I do, or do this or do that, or block this door, or egress windows are always a big thing. Mm-hmm. And people want to sleep their children in the basement. There's no windows. There's no way to get out one way. That stuff makes me crazy when I go in a house, just to see unsafe conditions that people are willing to live with, that are pretty simple to rectify, and they won't do it.
What are the other big things? Like just cursory, you walk into a house, you're doing an inspection, you're looking at structural, you're looking at, I think, things to identify as potential safety issues. What are some of the other just big categories that if you had to lump them together, like I'm getting a home inspection, this is the big stuff I expect to at least see back a report on?
I think one of the first things we do when we walk through, and you don't even see me doing it a lot of times, is I'm just walking through and taking in information all the time. My kids had to do this for their summer job, right? My daughter said, yeah, I'd go to college parties and I'd want to look at the panel. Like I'm walking in and I'm looking at stuff. They were driving through a neighborhood and my wife's like, hey, they're all mansions in the neighborhood. Look at that. And my daughter's like, Mom, can't you see it needs a roof? Couldn't look at houses without. So like I'll walk in and I'm just taking inventory of like, okay, got to approach this way. What kind of attic hatch do I have? Is there anything that I see right away? Is there any movement, any cracking? That kind of thing. You're always just like, you don't want to miss anything. Like I stress about, I don't want to miss anything. And so you're trying to take some advanced information. You got to go back to it. And basements, most everything happens in a basement. That's where most of the time is. All your services are down there. So you're going down and that's where crazy stuff happens. Like the wiring's goofy, or they've done some plumbing repair using tape, or, is there a leak? I've seen cracked pipes. I've had a cracked pipe in a place I owned 7 years. It just held together because of the sludge, and finally it let go. And I'm just like, all right, I got to fix it. But, how are they maintaining the house? Like what surprises do I have? And I'm concerned about my own safety too, right down to, do they have an angry dog here? I got to be careful. Winter can be tough because you don't know, as you're going through the snow, what's under it. I've fallen off landscape walls over my head in snow, and you're just like, you get the weird feeling of like you're in water. It's like, oh no, you can breathe, calm down, but you still got to get out. That's happened before, slipped and fall. Luckily, knock on whatever we have, I haven't gotten really hurt on something. I've hit my head here or there, but just where do I have to be careful? Also, what do they have in the house? Do they have a bunch of glassware? I got to be careful. Like I don't want to break anybody's stuff. That's why when people come to inspections and I had a guy yesterday who's reefing on a door. And I'm like, hey, we can't break anything. We're just going to write that up. We know it's not working well. Don't go any further. And he would have broken the door, and I'm like, I'm responsible for that. Don't do that. What are the stairs like? Are they dangerous? And some people are willing to live with really odd conditions, like no guardrails at decks that are like you'll die if you fall off it. And they just didn't want any guardrails, so I'm only going to be out there once. So I have to be careful. I want to make sure I'm super careful about what the conditions are. Wiring. COVID time when nobody could come, I was in a house up north and there was a gas leak in the oven. And I picked up my thermal camera to take a picture to see if it was working, to see if the pilot was on. It blew me across the room.
Really?
Yeah. So And of course, I was in a town where there was no cell service or anything, and my stuff's all over the place. My camera came apart, and I run to the bathroom to see if I got burned because it was a fireball, like it came at me, and my eyebrows burned off, and the camera was in front of my face, so it kind of dissipated the flame going behind or going by me, but it did. It burned off my
Oh
eyebrow.
my God.
And I'm like, I gotta go get that shut off. You can't burn. So I get back into civilization and like call the agent, like, hey, anything you want to tell me about that house and the gas stove? Oh yeah, it's been leaking. Like,
They're gonna tell you that before?
no. I'm like, dude.
Jesus
I
Christ.
said, well, here's what just happened. So that was a dangerous one. One time I opened a panel and my daughter was behind me, and luckily I was elevated off the floor. And when I was taking the cover off, the center breaker just blew out. Just blew out. It was one of those houses where, how did they do this? And the house hasn't burned down. But another thing is water. So there'll be water in a basement. Don't walk in the water, because if you touch something electrical and you create a path, you're dead, like fast. Electricity doesn't travel in water. It travels in the particles in the water. So you have to be careful. Like, don't wade in water. And so when all the flooding happened, people would call, because we do some drying and I have some pumps and all that kind of stuff. And, like, you just put your stuff in the water, pump the water out, but don't walk in it. People will do that kind of thing. I'll go to an inspection. I'm like, hey, you got 6 inches of water in your basement. We can't do this. I'm not going in there. Because all I have to do is get off balance, touch something electrical, create a path, I'm done. And so it's the things people do and they don't tell you about. You grab something and it breaks or it comes off and it looks like you broke it. And I'm like, oh man, they had to know about this, but I got to let them know because I didn't break this, so that's the one thing you really want to, like, I don't want to break anybody's stuff. So, but I get really fired up when there's a condition they don't tell me about and I could get hurt.
Like leaving a gas stove on and a fireball coming at your face.
Yeah. Yeah. That could have been bad.
Okay.
And I've had situations where they blew insulation in an attic over a hatch and they didn't say anything. And I open the hatch and the closet fills with insulation up to my neck and I'm in it.
So being a home inspector is not without risk, is
Right.
the moral of this part.
Yeah. And so that took me like 3 days to clean up. I had to keep going back and forth. There's like a bunch of 30-gallon bags. And like day 3, the guy shows up, he's laughing at me. And I wanted to throw a punch. Like, I was just like, he's like, oh yeah, we blew it over. I said, you could have told somebody. And then it happened to me once in a girl's closet. And I just got covered. It took an hour to clean up everything. I keep a vacuum on the truck, second set of clothes. But it's just stuff like that. But I didn't have an hour to give. It was a late night inspection. Yeah. So just letting us know, hey, this could happen. Don't do this. Or happens if you do that. So just be careful. I appreciate those people that leave me notes. But a lot of people just let you find it.
All right. So the note here is to sellers and agents, if you know something, let the inspector know.
Yeah, it's important because then it keeps those phone calls. Like, he broke it. Yeah. And so along those lines, there's another good thing to talk about is basically CYA. And that's why the reports are so long too. Because you have to...
What do you mean by CYA?
Cover yourself.
Got it.
But in doing that, if you're with me, I'm trying to cover you too. I'm not just looking out for me. I'm looking out for you. I'm looking out for the list agent in the sense that there's a condition here. They really need to know about this. If I don't tell them, or money being left around, I'll take a picture. I'll make sure, like sometimes I've seen large sums of money put in a closet. I'm like, oh, it's such a setup. Like, I don't even want to know that that's there, but I better take a picture so I know that it was there and I can show them, hey, yeah, I saw it and that's what it looked like. Or, sometimes you'll get a phone call. Well, here's a great point. One time I did this house. It was a late night inspection. They showed up with a dozen people to look at the house. Had a pool inside, and somebody in the group ran through and hit a switch, and it shut the pool heater off. Well, I got a call in the morning. You shut my pool heater off, this and that. So, well, I don't test those. But having photos of conditions, it's important. When I leave a house now, I go and take a photo of the range to make sure that I shut it off, the oven.
Little things like that.
Because people get you into conversation maybe, and you forget that you did something.
So, kind of slight pivot here. So that's a lot of what home inspections are, and also your process and kind of what it's like to do them. What are they not?
So we're not a specialist. I'm not an engineer. I'm a mold specialist, but I don't know, I keep doing the air quote thing. But I'm a mold specialist. I'm a water damage specialist, but I can't give you a price on your roof. Like, I don't know. It's damaged. I don't know how long it's going to last. That's a crazy question. Well, how much longer do you think I have in my roof? Can I get through the year? And so stupidly, when I first started, you got 4 to 6 years left. It'd leak in 3. So now I put 0 to 4, 0 to 5, 0 to 10, because it can leak tomorrow.
Got it. And then something that I see on my end is pass fail. And there's a lot of specialty tests. Right? So people are requesting sometimes water tests,
right,
radon tests. What are some of the common add-on tests that people could have?
I wish you guys wouldn't use the pass fail language.
How come?
Because we don't pass or fail anything at all. And that's what answers part of that last question is I'm not there to pass or fail the home. And people still walk into inspections and will be like, so did we pass? Like, what do you mean? They don't pass or fail. It's about condition. Does it pass for you? And so agents will be really adamant. It's like, Jeff, it's a pass or fail inspection. I'm like, I don't care what that means. That only is meaningful to you. It isn't meaningful to me because that's not what I'm doing there.
It could also be language for the buyer. Does it pass or not? And that is, I think, distinguishes it a little bit because there are reports that come back that are very long. No action is taken on them. And sometimes there's very short reports that come back and those small items become negotiation items. And I like to explain to, and this is just my perspective, explain to a client, I say, the inspection is information for you and then yourself and your agent to discuss what to do or not do from it.
And that goes back to the condition report. It's what's the condition of the home, and what we talked about earlier, what is a home inspection? And it's basically, it's that in a nutshell. It's like, okay, you just want to know about
the condition report.
I don't like the language of a pass-fail inspection, but I love pass-fail inspections because the negotiation stuff drives me nuts. I don't like that someone takes my report and tries to go get a damaged screen. And I don't like that people take my reports and kill deals based upon inspection because I didn't tell them to do it. I didn't tell them this condition's bad enough where you shouldn't buy this house. They're making that decision. But I'm the one that gets hurt by it because then the agents are like, Belrose did that inspection and they walked away off it. And so my name gets associated with someone walking away from a home because of inspection. Well, it's nothing I ever have anything to do with.
You are there just to, as a referee, you see it as, I do explain, it's sort of like as-is properties. A lot of people think you can't do property inspections on an as-is property. You absolutely can, right? It's just, that's one where the seller's indicated in advance that they are sometimes unable or they don't want to do anything to the home.
Right.
You can still request it as part of an offer to know the conditions and sometimes even negotiate afterwards. So I think there's sometimes misnomers.
Yeah, no. And again, just to put that out there, like it makes me crazy that my inspections get used to bag out of something, a great house. Just be honest. You didn't want the house.
Sometimes it happens.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, don't say it's because of inspection. It wasn't. So that does make me a little crazy. Like I think about that and I'm just like, what, and so I got to let it go sometimes, but I can't.
I would say that's really between the buyer and the agent. Right? And a lot of times it's the buyer. And there are certain things at the end of the day that a buyer can live with and some they can't. And it's sort of where's the middle ground and what's right for you. So.
Well, and here's a great example. We'll protect the innocent, but so I had some buyers one day They hired me to do an inspection. The house was beautiful. I really liked it. I liked it personally. There wasn't anything wrong with it. And they came up to me before the inspection and they're just like, hey, you got to get us out of this house. We were driving around today. We found a neighborhood we like even better. Like, it's not my job. It's not what I do. I said, I can't help you there. You know, I'll give you a great inspection, but I'm out of it at that point. Like, don't do that to me. You know, you figure it out however else you have to. But that agent got mad at me. And you knew, and this, that, and the other. Like, I'm not part of their family. Yeah. I'm not buying this house with them. So don't take it out on me. It's like, that was a choice they made. I didn't love it, but you know, I'm as neutral as I can be with that stuff. And that's the referee part too. We're supposed to try to be as neutral as we can be, you know, and that's something I work hard on. I'm for my customer, but sometimes my customers make bad decisions. But that's not up to me. It's their decision. I know it's bad, but I can't sit there and say, hey, you're making a bad decision. They're making their own decision.
Based on what works for them.
Right. So that one, the agent, he was wild at me. Like, he put my radon box outside in the rain, $1,000 box. We had words.
Okay.
And it was because of that decision. Like, I had nothing to do with.
Well, it kind of goes back to the referee comment.
Yeah.
Just calling it as it is.
Yep.
Along those lines, I want to get to this COVID.
Yeah.
So COVID was an interesting time in real estate because all of a sudden there's this scramble going on. Interest rates had dropped extremely low. So even if the prices were higher than previously, because at the end of the day, buyers care about their mortgage more than anything. And I've seen that over time. Yeah. Sellers are sort of bottom line, what am I getting? Buyers are really like, what's my mortgage? And so COVID, we have the low rates. Things are selling, sometimes over asking all the time. And a lot of inspections just start getting waived. And so it's not so much a question on, is that a good thing or a bad thing? But what was that like from your perspective?
And to your point, like someone the other day one agent said to another agent, well, if you don't have an inspection, we'll do this. And people are still doing that.
It does happen.
And hopefully we'll get into the legal stuff later. You really shouldn't do it. Because we're already starting to see lawsuits from that.
How come?
Just because they bought no inspection and things happened. And so they sued their agent. And so you really put yourself needlessly in harm's way just to make a deal. I don't know why you do it. Now, I'm not saying that just because I'm in the business. It's like if I'm buying a property, I'm never doing that on my own. I'm using a realtor 100% of the time, 100%, because they do what they do. They do it better than I can do it. They do it better than any two other people can do it, like a lawyer and a this and that. They're going to organize it for me. They're going to walk me through it. There's value in that for me. I would never say, don't use a realtor. Save some money. I could have done that, a bunch of times, but the value's there for me. Well, the value's there in a home inspection too. We're just in a position where somebody can knock us out and say, hey, don't do it. So what COVID was like for me was weird, man. So we could see it coming, and I was always talking to different agents here and there was a few agents like, what do you think's going to happen? This and that. Then we get shut down, and we're getting on the phone with each other like, what are we going to do? And so I wrote every single legislator. I wrote the governor. I wrote everybody. Maybe two people got back to me. The governor got back to me, which was great. I was like, this is how we can do things. I gave him like a 12-point list. Well, at first they let us do them for a while. And then I got a call from like the state's highest lawyer. He's like, hey, what are you still doing out there doing inspections? Like, well, you guys said we could. I called and I talked to like 4 different people, and they said, you meet the criteria, keep going. It's an essential service or whatnot. We got to get people in houses, keep going. Then they decided, no, we're not doing it. They were walking contractors off job sites, And so he's like, well, you got that on paper? I'm like, well, I don't. So they shut us down. So we sat for 2 weeks, and then finally I just got antsy. I'm like, this could be a problem. We could be out of business really fast. There's a lot of realtors who are depending on this. This is going to be hard. I wrote to the governor, and they adopted some of the stuff that I said, and they let us go. And while I was going in a white suit and a full face respirator, breathing in that thing for 8 hours. And People couldn't come in. People were sneaking in, and they'd show up to the inspection, and he'd be like, "You got to get out of here. I'm going to lose my license. Get out of here." And we'd turn around and get them out. But it went from, we were doing our normal numbers in the 600s to, I think I did 760 that year. I'll never do it again because they won't be there, but it's just too many. And I'm like, okay, we're going to gear up here. This is going to be good. Well, the next year I was down like 200, 225 inspections just because, and I bought some property in that time frame too. So I saw it on both ends, and I'm like, wow, this could really hurt. It did. That 200 inspections doesn't sound like a lot, maybe.
And so now it seems like it's kind of ticked back up. There's been a little bit more.
Yeah, so
I
we're
wouldn't say
back.
normalcy.
Yeah,
in
we're
the
our normal numbers, but still seeing the skipping, like still getting customers, to their credit, who are calling and saying, well, I bought the house, I want an inspection after. Like I did a house Tuesday, and they had it built 2 years ago. And they're like, well, we didn't get an inspection, so we decided to do it. Great.
That's actually not.
Yeah.
That's something I do tell people. I said, once you have the house, you are entitled, if you want to do an inspection on your own house and have the known conditions. Sometimes sellers actually will inspect the house before listing, right? Just to sort of know themselves what would somebody come in and see. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it.
Absolutely. We do a bunch of pre-inspections for different realtors who really believe in them. And then I have other realtors who just, no, we don't want to know, which I think's crazy. Because I think the best deals that I see and I've ever been involved in, from a buyer perspective and seller perspective, is transparency. They're the best deals. They get done. And I just think pre-inspecting a home, it cuts down on negotiation. I think it moves the process quicker, but there's just folks in the business who are just not bought into it.
So one of the last things that you want to cover, you mentioned some legal things for you.
Yeah, I think people are getting more litigious. They're willing to sue anybody. And I think we've had to make some changes in terms of on-site stuff. The interaction, we still want the interaction, but the whole don't follow us around stuff. And it used to be, you'd walk around with a clipboard and you say, yeah, that's that and that's this. Well, those days are over. And I think people have a better experience if they come to the house and they interact with it on their own, how they're going to live there, get a feel for it by themselves. Because again, if someone's walking around with me, they're going to see what I see. They're not going to see it through their own eyes. I think it goes better if they're there and they just walk around and they come and ask the question and then they go back to what they're doing, and at the end, people seem to be happy and they're just like, oh, that was great, But at first they're just, oh, you don't want us to talk to you? It's like, no, I want you to talk to me, but I don't want you to talk to me so much that I'm not giving you a good job. People can be distracting, especially, they bring dad who he's got his flashlight. He's going to inspect the home too. He's going to work with, and I'm like, I don't want that. Don't do that. Do it on your own, but you're not my help for the day. It's not helpful. I think the record number of people at an inspection was 21. Yeah. And then that's a good story. I'll tell that one after. But one time I got sucked into doing a Mother's Day inspection and 18 people showed up. And I'm driving down the road and I realized, I called the agent, like, we can't do this Mother's Day. I'm going to be dead. He said, no, we got to get it done. So I show up and 18 people. 4 Uncle Billy's walking with me like, you see that? What about that? I haven't gotten to there yet.
That could be a whole separate conversation. Parents and stuff come.
And go to the showing. Don't come to don't bring 18 people to an inspection. It's not helpful. But there are some families that do it culturally. And I'll tell the story of the $5 girl. Have I ever told you this story? So 21 people. And in this culture, it's a big thing to negotiate. So at the end of the inspection, the girl's like, I give her the price and she goes $5 less. And she just keeps at it. And I turned to the agent, I'm like, what's going on? He goes, I don't know. So I'm like, I don't care, whatever. So she walks back to the group and holds up the $5 and they cheer. And I'm like, what is going on here? And he goes, well, it's a big deal for them to negotiate. And there was an uncle with me like the whole way. He's like, why do you charge so much? This, that. I finally had to take him outside and I'm like, look.
Price is what it is.
Price is what it is. Ask me once. I'm fine with it if you keep it up. it's offensive.
Okay.
You know, like just stop. So they didn't buy that house. We go to another inspection and she's walking down the stairs and I'm like, the price is this and that's it. And I was just kidding. And she just drops her head. Okay. You know, I just, but another time my daughter and I were at an inspection and a whole party of people show up. And I mean party. They lay out food. They're
This
smoking.
is not recommended.
No, they're smoking cigars. And my daughter's like, Dad, who are these people? I said, I don't know. I finally asked him, like, are any of you the buyer? Oh, no, they couldn't make it. We just wanted to see the house. I'm like, get out. Everybody get out. I mean, they had wine going. Geez, like they could have spilled stuff.
Yeah, not advised.
I'm like, just get out.
So the moral of the story is, in the last 15 years, I've seen quite a few things.
Oh, yeah, no, it's, and fun, like great customers. I mean,
Yeah.
just fun people, great houses. People like, oh, you must love doing those really nice big houses. Well, yeah, you do, but there's a lot of systems or a lot of work. Give me a good 2,600 square foot colonial or ranch all day long. I'm happy. It's great. You know?
Well, I appreciate it. We're about out of time, so I think I might have to have you come back in for a second session.
Yeah, we'll do it. It was good. Of course, I love talking about this stuff, and it was fun to do it.